All right, and now we welcome back the U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials champion, Conner Mantz, ready to go to the Paris Olympics. You've got that Olympian title now. After a couple days of just processing the race, spending time with family, how are you feeling spiritually, emotionally, physically as well? I mean, after Chicago the next morning, I remember seeing a post on Strava that you'd gone for a run, and I just checked before this, and it was like no running since
Yeah.
Saturday.
No, I definitely wanted to take this one a little slower after. No matter unless I didn't make the team and then it was gonna be like, all right, let's get to it. So I was like, okay, I have 6 months plus a few days, like I'm fine. But I'm feeling good. Like I said in an earlier interview, it was like this has been one of my big like lifetime goals. And now that, it's checked that box, it kind of is like, oh wow, like that's um it's like I've qualified. But then my wife was nice enough to remind me. She's like, I don't want to bring a damper on this, but you still gotta like be ready for the Olympics. Like if you get hurt, it's not really an Olympics. And so I'm like, you're right. So like, that's a good point. So I'm feeling good, but it's I don't know. Got the prelim finished now. I'm excited to head to the final.
I love that approach to it. After the race, we got the chance to go and sit down with Clayton. You from what we heard from just the rep guys and even just like your agent, it was like you were exhausted. How did the end of this marathon feel compared to, Chicago and some of these past other races where you just left it all out there?
Yeah, I think it was definitely like no, I don't think it was the marathon itself that was so tough, but it was the stress building into it. Um, I knew I was the favorite, and I had that on my mind, and also I was getting really frustrated about the whole system of qualifying because I was like, wait a sec, like just send Clayton and I, like unless anybody breaks 2:08:10 at the trials, like we should be. I don't know. They don't do the same thing on the track. Nobody on the track gets a reallocated spot. And so it was kind of like this frustration, and I tried to ignore it. My big goal of this build has been um like not even this build for the last year is just like focus on what I could do. Like I didn't go to Worlds because I didn't think I could run the standard there. I decided to do Chicago instead. And it was like I need to get the standard so there's at least one spot so I can go run it at. So if I win the trials, I can focus on that. And so, Um, I just lost track where I was going with
You're
that.
talking
But
about the stress.
yeah, okay. And then I was like, so there was in my mind, like heading into this, there was just a lot of stress building on it. I was like trying to focus on what I could do, not controlling, not relying on anybody else's stuff. And so like the night before I woke up that I had a nightmare that I didn't finish the race. It's not usual for me to dream about running the night before a race. But I've been just thinking about the race so much and like this fear of I might not finish. What if that happens? What if I don't know, I was worried about all these what ifs and I was just so stressed. Woke up at 3 a.m. from that dream and I couldn't fall back asleep after an hour of just laying there nervous as can be, my heart beating. And I was like, all right, I gotta take my mind off this. I just started watching some YouTube or whatnot, like whatever I could to just not stress out. But it was like 3 a.m. to the start of the race at 10:08, 10:10. And actually, even through the first 5 miles, I was super stressed. And I was like, I don't know. Before I warmed up, sitting down and I'm like looking at my tights and my legs, and it's just everything's shaking. Like there's little muscles that I'm like, I feel calm. And then I look down and like, I don't know, little muscles in my quads that like I didn't know were muscles or whatnot are just like vibrating up and down like an insane amount. And so just all the stress of this race, like I don't think I went to the well as much as I did in Chicago or Boston as far as during the race, but I didn't, I was so nervous that I was gonna mess this up, mess this opportunity up. And
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Was that in the tent beforehand where everyone is kind of gathered, or like where were those moments where you were sitting like totally losing your mind, nervous? Because I guess like that's the moment where you're surrounded by your competitors. Did like having Clayton around help or not really?
Oh, it definitely did. Because it's just like we could just talk about anything. And like we had Clayton, there's another guy named Hoptamu that we train with. Jake Heslington and Connor Weaver, who are both BYU alums, were there. McKenna Myler was coming and going, and we had our athletic trainer and our PT. So it was like we had a good support staff around us to keep us like cool and collected. But even when I thought I was like as collected as can be, I am sitting in a chair. And we did outside, kind of like it's nice to the porta potties, but it was, I don't know, you had the lake right there, so it looked really pretty. So it kind of was like, oh, at least it's a nice day, you know?
So even from 3 a.m. to, I guess like at first they were trying to get people on buses by like 7 a.m., even with the 10 a.m. start, whatever time it ended up being that you finally get to that warm up zone, like, what are you telling yourself this whole entire time? Because like it is the race everyone has been building up for the past like 4 years. And it felt like that pressure was culminating on you.
Right. And like part of it was just I was trying to relax. And that was the big thing was like, okay, relax. That's what I kept telling myself, but it was not fun. Like I don't think that race there was anything that like was fun until 5.5 miles. When Zach Panny took the lead, it was like, okay, like now I'm on pace. Now I don't have to worry about anything random. I am in control. And it was just like Coach and I had talked before the race. I mean, the three of us, Clayton, Coach, and I, had gone over strategies together. And Coach was like, "All right, we want to run this race relaxed as possible. You can't take the lead till 22." And so it was like, okay, like I'm not going to take the lead. He's like, just hammer from 22 on if you need to, but just stay in the pack. And so when Zach Panning takes the lead, I'm like, awesome. Now I can run my pace I want to run, but I can follow what Coach said and I can just try and run relaxed.
Clayton mentioned to us that the night before the race is ultimately, I guess, like when the planning was taking place with you, Coach Stone, and that there was discussion. It was like, oh, whose moves are we going to cover, or what pace
Yeah.
we would be covering. And so we also kind of talked about how because this is a little bit of an out of body experience when you're in this race, that you have to wake yourself up at some point and realize that you're in this moment. And for you, you kind of mentioned it didn't really happen until Zach took off. So if we're kind of breaking down the race now, you missed your bottle at the very beginning, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was so stressed and worried I was gonna miss my bottle because I was in a crowd. I disobeyed Coach, took to the lead, but I was like, okay, it's fine. I'm just doing it to get my bottle. Just want a clear path to my bottle. And then as I'm looking at it, I just started thinking about like I talked to Nathan Martin before because he was the second bottle. I was like, hey, like whoever's in the lead gets their bottle. Let's not try and strategize or anything. He was just like, okay, whatever. Because Clayton had talked to Reed Fisher, I think, because they were on the same table. So I was like, I should talk to him. And so I was like, all right, like whatever happens with the bottle, like let's just make sure, give each other space, make sure the other person gets their bottle. And so that's what I started thinking of when I went to grab my bottle. I wasn't in the moment, and I missed it. I grabbed the top. I have a little straw that comes out, and so I grabbed the straw and it just like flipped. Like me trying to grab it, it just flipped on my finger and just went down. And I was like, dang it! Like spent all this like energy. Like I don't know. I feel like that's the one thing I've kind of that's like fueling is the one thing I've really worked on this build is to make sure I can drink as much as possible.
You
Yeah,
didn't decide to do like the same stuff as Clayton when it came to like the actual bottles, because right, he had a hat in there and like
yeah,
some weird sort of device. Why did the two of you kind of go about different strategies with that? Because I guess like you're definitely like the more like, all right, grinding, hard work, like gonna run as hard as possible. And Clayton tries to find sort of like that those little marginal gains, and
yeah.
it's little things like that.
Yeah, I think part of it was I had heard it. I had thought like it was against the rules. Um, and I
Apparently,
told my
Clayton checked with like everyone possible.
yeah, yeah, and I was like, I don't even want to think about this. Like, I just want to do what. And I was like, I don't know how much it's going to help. So I was just trying to worry about, okay, what am I used to? What can I do? And Clayton was very much like looking for those marginal gains and going through everything. I just knew if I started talking to people, I'd get stressed about the what ifs. And I was already stressed, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep things as simple as I can. And yeah, what was in our individual bottles? We used the same water bottles, but I just had Martin 320 in mine, and Clayton had Martin 320 plus oh, what was it? It's like the ketone stuff. I think plus something else for electrolytes. I don't know what he had exactly in there. All I know is it tasted terrible. And I was just like trying to drink this stuff. I'm like, good thing we're going like 505 pace right now because this is a little miserable, like trying to drink this. But
So when was the wake up? I guess like when Zach takes the lead, he's obviously someone who, if we go back to October when we did the podcast after Chicago, I asked you throw out a name of someone who you're going to be watching for that third spot, and both of you said Zach Panning. So this whole entire time, you guys knew that his world championship run was a bit undervalued and overlooked. That you guys just went for it.
yeah, it was like we both knew Zach Panning was somebody to go with. We weren't sure about if Paul Chelimo or Kishomi um, were people to go with. We knew obviously Fable and Sam Schlinger because we've been training with Sam and throughout it was like you go with those guys, but there's other people like who weren't as experienced that we were unsure about. And so when we see Zach Panning move, it was like, okay, like we'll go with him. And he went out a little faster than um, we'd said we would go. It was like no matter what people do, like we're not going to break 450. But then after 5.5 miles at 5 flat pace, it was like, okay, well, I guess we can break 450 a little bit. And then there were a few miles in there that were like, okay, this is we're straining. Like I know I can't hold this for the whole marathon, but like if everybody's in this pack, I know like everyone, like most people are gonna fall apart.
Yeah. So then, did you ever look back to see as the lead pack was like dwindling? Because there was a moment where it got down to like, it was like 10 and then 6. And then finally at one point there was a breakaway and it was only 4. It was you, Clayton, Zach Panning, and Andrew Colley of all people.
Yeah. Yeah, so I looked back a few times and just kind of saw a big pack. And one of those times I looked back to make sure where see where Clayton was. Just trying to make sure he's on pace. And there was one time I stopped hearing cheers for Clayton, which Clayton and I both had a lot of people out there cheering us on. And so like when I stopped hearing cheers from Clayton and I looked back, um, it was after the second or no, the third like U-turn. Um, I looked back and I didn't see him, and I was like, "Ah, crap!" Like now it's just on me to make the team. And it was like kind of like, "Oh wait! I was gonna try and make the team anyway," but my thought went, "Dang it! Like now it's all on me to make the team for this group." But fortunately, it was just I didn't see Clayton. There was one time um, Zach Penny started to pull away from me a bit. And then Tashome came up to try and pass me. It was after one of the water stops, so I'm like fiddling with one of those water bottles and just trying to cool off. And Zach Penny just he had it down. He practiced so many times, I bet, with bottles that like he was not slowing down at all when he picked up anything. And for me, it was like I'd miss 2 bottles and like hit him down and then finally grab one. Um, and I saw Tashome and passing me, and I was like, oh crap. And then 2 miles later, 3 miles later. I made a deal with myself. I'm like, there's gonna be a big pack. Just wait till 30K, and then you can look back. And I wasn't listening to myself, but I was sort of listening to myself. And
I love how
so,
much you get in your own head, Connor.
oh, it's the worst. I make these deals with myself just to like just get 1 more mile or whatnot.
um,
Um, but yeah, when I looked back and saw at the the second to last bottle stop when it was the four of us and we began to drop Collie. Collie didn't even go and get a bottle.
Oh
And so
wow.
I was like, oh, he's like you can't do that right now. And Collie was gone pretty quickly after that. And then I gave Clayton a high five because I was like, we've done it. We've slightly broken away from four. There's three of us. Like like it was kind of like the okay, we're on sub 208 pace pretty much. And there's three of us and Clayton and I are both in the pack. It's like, okay, we've made it. And then very quickly I got back in my own head. It was like, oh crap, what if I'm like coaching the 96 Olympic trials and I don't finish with 400 to go or whatnot?
Yeah, take me through that high five moment and your rationale to throw it back for Clayton. He didn't see it coming and it took him by surprise. He understood what to do,
Yeah.
but to the outside people looking in, there's a clip of me and the CITIUS mag team just losing our minds because at that point we're like, all right, Sharpie, like it's these guys. This is the team, or at least that the two of you were going to make it because at that point Zach was laboring. But what compelled you to go for the high five?
I think it's just that little bit of community that like this celebration, like it's like there's nothing better than, working so hard with someone and then finally being like, oh, like we both can do this and we're both probably gonna do this. Like if Zach kept hammering and it broke 208.10, like Clayton and I would get second and third, or maybe we would have stayed with him and, one and three or one and two. I don't know what could have happened, but it was just like the idea of okay, we've worked so hard for this. We've talked about this for a long time, where it's just the two of us running together at the end. And when I saw three, it's like okay, like we've made the team. We were like I was pretty confident as long as anything didn't happen, but I was feeling so good and I felt smooth and I was like okay, like it was kind of like this feeling of relief too of okay, I don't have to worry about anyone else. Like it's now just running, and I can do that. I can just keep my own pace up. If people were going to catch us, they would have caught us by now, or they would have stayed with us. But then eventually I got back in my own head and was like, oh crap, anything can happen. Like every marathon I faded, but every marathon but my first one, I faded the last couple miles. So
I it it's so funny because I think I called it out during like our alternate broadcast that soon after that, when it is just the three of you, there's some talking happening in that lead pack. And I was running through all the different scenarios to people as to like explaining, no, okay, like they need this to be faster than 208.10 with, or Zach needs to unlock the third spot in order for all three of them to go. And if it was you and if the winning time was over 208.10 and it was panning and you finishing 1-2 and Clayton right behind, that doesn't guarantee Clayton's spot. So like you had an understanding of the rules and I could see the wheels turning in your head, kind of going through that live in the moment. What are the conversations that took place with Zach and Clayton at that point? Because you guys were figuring this out in the moment too.
right, and I kind of told Zach like, hey, we have three broken away. Like keep what you're doing. I wasn't going to take the lead from him because again, I didn't want to risk anything. It's super selfish, but it is the Olympic Games, and it's I any other race I would have gone out and helped out with the lead, but at the Olympic trials, it's no man, this is on you. Like I
I
don't,
did my part. I unlocked the spots.
yeah, I did, yeah, exactly. I'm like I'm not gonna take the lead and push, especially because there are a few slightly windy sections, and I always feel like that gets in my head really quickly. So it was like, okay, there's like I'm just gonna let you lead. And then I could tell at 22 we were slowing quite a bit. And I started feeling really good. And I kept looking back thinking, oh, like we're slowing quite a bit. And I'd split my watch every mile marker so I knew what that mile marker was. Um, or that mile was. And then I would like look back and I was like, ooh, like we just ran like 4:59, and like people are probably catching us. And so I look back, I didn't see anyone, so I go out to the side to give a full like look back, and I could barely see Lenny in the background, and I was like, oh, like we're good. Like no one is catching us. Like unless like I unless we do something like too hard. And so at 22, I'm like, all right, I'll take the first chance at that coach gave me as my okay to take the lead. If Zach had said something like, guys, like let's go, or if he had like slowed down significantly, I would have gone to the lead. But he seemed like he was rolling and happy to roll, so I wasn't going to take that away from him.
Yeah. So
But
when you and Clayton pull away, does a little part of you have your heart break for Zach, knowing that he just did all this work and it was slipping out of his hands?
absolutely. Well, I thought he would still hold on for third. And I thought, okay, if he holds on for third, he can go like not chase the standard, but kind of chase the ranking. And so I passed him at 22 and was like, hey, Zach, like tuck in. Um, I'll lead, like Clayton and I'll lead the next bit. Or I just said I'd lead the next bit. And then after 23, I didn't speak up. I actually slowed the pace down. I didn't realize I did. I turned to Clayton. I was like, hey, you want to take a mile? Because it's like the last windy section um, before you have like that 2 mile long stretch where you have the wind at your back. And Clayton took the lead, and he was just celebrating. And I was feeling good, but I was just that anxiety was getting to me, and it was like kind of this like debilitating anxiety of, oh crap, like what if I pass out? What if my calf cramps? What if my hamstring cramps? And it was like all these worries of what if? And Clayton kept being like, hey, just run side by side with me. Let's enjoy this moment. And I was like, no, I'm not feeling good. And a lot of it was, yeah, I was pretty tired, but it mainly was like my mind was like so stressed out. So I was like, I just need to make sure I finish, like finish without anyone passing me. I need to save enough in the tank if somebody starts to catch up, like, or enough in the tank that I just don't blow myself up. So it was this, I don't know, very big mental battle of I don't want to pace it because I might blow myself up or I might be too cautious. So I'm gonna let Clayton pace it all on his own, which is kind of, I don't know, my wife is like, do you feel like a jerk? You made other people lead all but 1 mile of the race. And I was like, yeah, kind of, but I really wanted to make this team.
Yeah, I mean, you did what you had to do in order to get what you wanted. So the biggest thing people have been discussing, right, has been the finish, right? And the way Clayton described it was no, he was soaking in the moment. He knew you weren't feeling well, like you just said, and that he was kind of going to be there just in case like you had slipped back. I don't know. Like my interpretation of it was like it was still a little bit unclear to me as to what would have happened if you did start to falter. I think you guys were still they had enough time on third, but in the case, I guess in your worst case scenario, if you cramped up and started, fell down, I'm assuming Clayton would have helped you back up and you guys would have like finished together. But he gestures to you to go ahead and take the win. That wasn't discussed in that home stretch, or like, what is your vantage point
No,
of like exactly what happened at the finish?
no. So it was like, so when I said, hey, like 2 miles to go, I said, hey, I'm not feeling well. Like I might run behind you, but then enjoy the last 400 is what I pretty much said. Like man, I'm just trying to make sure I don't cramp. Like I'm just trying to make um like get the win. I'm not like pretty much I'm not gonna help you because I just want to focus on making sure I finish. And I can tell he's feeling good. One, Clayton's the smoothest runner in the field. There was a joke between some of the guys we run with if either him or Paul Chelimo was smoother of who's gonna look better on TV, Clayton or Paul Chelimo. Um but I could tell Clayton was feeling good because he kept like throwing his arms up, like he was throwing his hats to people. He was kind of like doing things that I mean, it probably all didn't get put on camera, but I could tell Clayton is feeling really, really good. And I could tell even in the days leading up, Clayton was on a whole nother level. There was no way Clayton wasn't going to make the team. Um,
We thought the opposite. We thought he had
yeah,
no shot.
I was like, man, this guy's trained with me for like, does anybody else have a training? Not to pat myself on the back, but does anybody else have a training partner who's leading them through every workout and they're just crushing it, and then they're the better than anybody else in the heat? Like Clayton is like in my mind, it was like I don't know what anyone else is doing, but I know what Clayton's doing, and he's kind of the one to beat. Like, but there was no discussion. I just thought Clayton was going to take off the last four, and I was just going to keep running my pace and run as hard as I could to the finish. Um, but then, yeah, I actually was surprised because at the finish, I'm running toward it, and Clayton's still celebrating, and I'm like, in my mind, it was like I'm just gonna like in the moment, I was like, I'm just gonna finish. Like, I guess Clayton doesn't want it. I don't know why. And like this is what I thought at the time. Like, I don't know why Clayton doesn't want it. And he was yelling encouraging stuff to me that whole last 2 miles, and I couldn't hear him from the crowd, which is pretty cool. But it was just like maybe he said something then, like I didn't hear what he said. Like, and he just told me he was just saying enjoy the moment, like, and telling me like some just saying like encouraging stuff, but I had no idea if he was saying like you go ahead or whatnot. Like,
Let's show some love for third place. Lenny Career, 4 years ago,
yeah.
just misses the team. This time around, comes charging home and takes that third spot in the final mile. It felt like crosses the finish line, runs right into a barricade, and then finally gets the moment with you guys and the flag draped over you. So, I mean, what were the conversations like afterwards with Lenny? Because you guys barely ran any of the race with him.
Yeah, it was Lenny's like a quiet guy. I don't know how much you talk to him.
I've reached out. We're trying to get him on the podcast. He's very hard to get a hold of.
Yeah. And so it was pretty special because I've never seen him like emotional. I've never like he's just very quiet. We've had dinner together at races. Like there's been a few times where Clayton and myself have gone out to eat with like the W Cap team, just at races, just because like we're really good friends with Sam Chalanga, and um, it's like where are you going to eat? We'll just go there. And Lenny's been like just quiet, like, but he's
Calculated. He's got like
very
it. He's a soldier, and so it's like he's got
yes,
like sort of that hard facade. But I guess like he did crack into showing a bit more of his emotion afterwards.
yeah, yeah, and that was really like pretty cool to see because he's just like he's a great athlete, and it's heartbreaking like fourth or wherever you are when you just missed the team, but he was what 2 seconds off, 3 seconds off,
And he was closing hard.
and he was closing hard, and it was really like I remember watching that race and being like I can't believe it went down to a kick, and that also freaked me out. I was like, oh, the marathon can go down to a kick. Like things I don't see as my strengths are how these marathons are ending, and I don't like seeing that. Um, so it was really special to hold the flags up. It was really sad or frustrating to me that like Lenny is celebrating his third place, and then he gets asked like twice. I was there when he got asked. So how does this work with your ranking and everything? Will you make the team? And it was just like, let him just celebrate for a day. Like, let him figure that out later. Like,
He's just got to go run a fast half, and he'll be fine. I think after this.
right. And even then, he might just still be fine. Like,
Yeah. His ranking, he got enough points, I think, even from this trials that he's over Fauble right now in the quota. So he's like 64th and it goes down to 80. There's a big difference there. I think Lenny should be fine. How much of the race, I mean, you got pretty detailed there.
yes,
Felt like a blur.
making this podcast really long.
No, no, it's all good. But it's like, does any of it feel like a blur? I know I saw a clip of you guys having a watch party where you went back with, friends and family and watch the race. Like that had to have been pretty cool to be in that room because you guys are actually offering like your inside commentary through the whole thing.
Right, right. And that was like the first time Clayton and I had actually started to talk about the race. And we still haven't, that might have been one of the only like times we've given, other than the KSL interview, we've able to been really like talk about it after we've been able to think about it. And so it was funny when I said, when people were asking, like, Clayton, what were you saying to Mance? And I was like, oh, I couldn't hear him. The crowds were too loud. And Clayton's like, come on. I said, like, I was like, this and this and this. And like, there was significance with every street name that we crossed. And he was like, there's a Lake Street. And he's like, Lake Loop, which is the name of one of our, where we do our tempos. And then he was like, Liberty Street, like, Liberty. And I was just like, he was just learning that a lot of it was I couldn't hear him, and we were learning why we were saying what we were saying. Um, it was cool. There was a lot of people there, and it was fun to offer insight. But I don't know. There was so many people that there was like kind of difficult too.
I'm sure like it's gonna be the thing you guys are gonna talk about like for the rest of your lives. Like in terms of just like that race in particular, you have that moment now forever, and like you're still sort of in it. This buildup is gonna be memorable. This compared to Chicago, which had been like the last two marathons where you've actually had Clayton step for step, healthy and 100% for
Yeah.
the whole block. Did this one feel more fun?
The marathon itself was more fun. Very very stressful, but it was more fun because we actually ran it together. Chicago, I think, was a little more tough because it was like Clayton and I were like told different race plans by coach, and it was kind of like, okay, I knew what he was doing, he knew what I was doing, and I don't know. I think this one was fun because we kind of went in like, okay, it's a like we both had the attitude of it's a prelim. I work with a sports psychologist, and he was like, okay, like, what are your goals for this marathon? I was like, to qualify, and he's like, well, then is it just a prelim? Like, you should probably think of it like that. It's like, okay, and so we both had that, that thought that this is the prelim and our goal is to qualify. And so it was kind of in a way like, I don't know, it still had pressure. Like I felt like it had to be Clayton to qualify, but also it was like there was a scenario where we both make the team, and that's the goal. That's all we really wanted. It wasn't like I need to beat Clayton or Clayton needed to beat me. It was our goal was to make the team.
Yeah. If the sports psych was right, then like it's okay for Clayton to have let up at the finish line because in the final he's not going to let you do that.
Oh, absolutely. I hope he doesn't. I mean, if he does, I'll, if he does, he won't. He won't. I'm not even gonna say what if he does. He won't.
We've seen a couple workout videos come out over the last couple weeks, and like all your training's up on Strava, and so is Clayton's. But coming into this one, do you have any feeling as to like who was the fitter one of the two of you?
I mean, I think if we run that race in ideal conditions, I might be fitter, but it was in the heat, and I think Clayton's a lot better at the heat. He is naturally gifted when it comes to heat, but instead of just being like good at running in the heat, he trains himself to be like amazing in the heat. Um, but I think either way, if it's in the heat or not, I think it was going to be close. Um, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm fitter than Clayton, but there's a part of me that's like, I think so. If it was like an ideal conditions, but then again, I don't know. Coach Iceland's very much of the opinion like fitness is all that matters. Like whether you're good in the heat or not, it doesn't matter. The fittest guy's gonna come out on top.
Yeah, because like you guys stayed in Utah for like a good chunk of it. You guys
Yeah.
had a short recon trip to Florida where you guys saw the course. But for the most part, like there wasn't anything all that extraordinary with the heat training, right?
I would say we were pretty good about it. I'd
Okay.
say,
Like what
um,
were you guys doing? We obviously see CJ with the lights and
okay,
Fable explained to me, the sauna blankets and everything that he was doing. What were you guys doing?
we'd finish our run and then we'd get to the sauna pretty immediately, and we'd be in there. I mean, maybe it definitely wasn't as much as CJ. CJ was on a whole other level. CJ probably thought it was cold there, but um, we would finish our runs and then we'd hit the sauna. And especially at the end there, we were hitting it for 30 minutes almost every day, other than like Sunday. So it was like you finish your hard run or your longer run, then you go to the sauna. And we both did some runs where we had these like core suits. I don't know if you saw them. People have them. I think Clayton posted a picture of one
Mhm.
where you the only thing that comes out is like your face, your hands, and your feet, and everything else is like tapered off. And we would do runs like that, and you just sweat a ton. I didn't like going out in public like that, so I just did that on my treadmill. Clayton didn't care, which is which I think is funny because I think I shouldn't have cared either, but
Someone's got a weird video like on the side of a road, and there's
right,
just Clayton running in his sauna suit.
right. And I would just bundle up extra. So like I'd go outside and it'd be like 30 degrees and I'd be warm.
Well, so
Like
how hot does it get in that while you're running?
we didn't measure it.
Okay.
Probably should have. But instead it was just like we just drench ourselves in sweat.
Well, Paris is going to be one really hot, and then they've got this mountain thrown into the middle of the course. It could suit you being like, the cross country champion from the NCAA days, and like we've seen you on flat fast courses, but now I guess this will be, and I guess saw you in Boston as well. This will be a true.
Boston doesn't count. I flew up there, so
All right, so we'll forget about Boston, but this will be like your first true test, like over 26 miles, with some pretty nasty incline.
yeah. And I honestly think this will be a good like it'll be good for Clayton and I. I think I can help Clayton train better with for hills. I mean, he's pretty good at hills, but I think I'm better. He's way better at anything training related, and he's able to like figure out the little things a lot better. And so I think he'll be able to help me out with that. And so I think we're in a good spot to do well. Whether well is 10th place for us or 8th place for one of us, like or it's a medal. Like I think we're I don't know, getting that qualifying check like box checked off, I think puts us in a really good spot because we train together, um, and it's gonna be nice because it's hot in Utah in the summer. Like it's kind of frustrating training for Orlando when you're doing a workout and it's 25 degrees outside, and to just you're not gonna make that a train. You're not gonna make all your hard runs in the heat. You're just gonna do them in freezing weather.
I mean, it's the type of course that, like, yes, we're hearing that potentially Kipchoge and Kiptoon might be named to like the Kenyan Olympic team, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be good on a course like that. I look to the likes of you. I mean, Cam Levins is like someone who I'm like really thinking of like could be a problem here at this race where it suits guys like you. And then at the same time, I think like you have nothing to lose at this point, right? Like in terms like there's so much less pressure at
Yeah.
the Olympics, knowing that, oh, you might have an outside shot at a medal. Clayton has no shot at a medal. Well, we're gonna make that
Yeah,
clear. But
yeah. You gotta
but
say that before he wins gold.
yeah. But yeah, so for you, I guess like approaching the Olympics, it's gotta be a little bit freeing too.
It really is, and it's nice to just go back and be thinking about training only, not having to think about okay, what if Fable makes a move, or what if Chalimo is this big unknown? What if Chalimo goes and he starts running 4:45? So I can just think about okay, like I'm qualified, I'm there. Now I can just go and race to on my own and not really worry about okay, if I blow up, I blow up. If not, it's whatever. But I don't know. It is freeing. I'm not gonna wake up, I think, the Olympic morning, like with this nightmare I didn't finish. Because if I don't finish at the Olympics, like, yeah, that really sucks. But I'm not gonna be like heartbroken that I missed my shot. Well, I
Let's not
guess
let's not throw that bad juju out there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, let's hope I get a good night's sleep before. I'm not up for 7 hours before the race starts.
You decided to upload the run to Strava, kept the title simple, morning run with Clayton. You did throw in a race recap in the caption, but for a while it was just morning run with Clayton. Why'd you title it that?
I thought it was funny.
It was funny.
Maybe I'm not that funny, but I like to think I am. Um, yeah, it honestly, like, what's funny is at the end, when I look back at it now, it really did feel like a kind of a long run workout. Like like the last few miles when we're running together, it's kind of felt like a really hard workout. And I mean, it reminds me of one of our 25-mile runs we did where um, it was really windy and icy, and Clayton and I were running on this like busy road, and I was coming off a sickness, or I was sick at the time, and so I didn't lead any of our like we did a 4 mile pickup at the end, and Clayton was like hammering the whole run, and then we had our 4 mile pickup, and I just got right behind him and just stayed with him, and then at the end got to his side, and we finished side by side, and we both sped up. It was kind of comical, just funny, and then I like looked back at that run, and then I looked back at our run on at the trials, and I'm like, oh yeah, it just felt kind of like the same thing.
Um, all right, let's get into some of these listener questions that were submitted on Instagram. Well, actually, before you mentioned kind of I remember in October you were itching to get right into the build for the trials. Then you come over with this stress reaction or in your hip,
My femur.
in your femur. How did you get over that? And I guess like, were you feeling? When did you feel 100% that you're like, okay, we're good. No need to panic. I'm getting texts in like late December being like, I think Conner Mantz just got an MRI. Things are looking bad. And like, then you run the half marathon with CJ, and I'm like, no, there's no need to panic. But for a while, like that's the sport. It's just sort of like the little rumors that fly. You were
Yeah.
dealing with an injury for a bit.
Yeah, so I had COVID and I tried to run through that, and like that was uh early November, late October. And then I kind of ran through it more than I should have, and I didn't recover well. So I get this stress reaction before Manchester, and I didn't know about it. I just felt this pain in my femur, and I was like, it was scaring me, and I just dropped my mileage that week. It was like I was going to train through Manchester, and instead I tapered for it, and then I ran a cool down, and then I was like, I changed my flight, flew home early so I could get an MRI, and yeah, I've had that was the third stress reaction I've had there, and it was like the earliest we've caught it. And it was in the marrow, which is different than I guess the actual like outside of the bone where you usually get it. But it took me a good like it took me out mainly for 3 weeks or 2 weeks, and then on the third week I started feeling it's like okay, I think like I can get back to it. And then I think 4 weeks after, or maybe 3.5, I did my first workout with Clayton, and I crushed it. And Clayton was pretty upset because I went up faster than I should have, and I just like I've been running on like the Alter G and the Boost treadmills, and so it's like to get your heart rate up, you put them at like high incline, and like there's one that Coach Taylor has that gets up to 15 miles an hour. So I was just hammering these runs at like 13 and 14 miles an hour. Uh, well, I guess that was just mainly one run, and then I went and was on the ground for like one run or like a few runs, and I do this workout and I averaged like 4:35 for 6 miles. And Clayton's like, "What the crap, man? Like, I thought you were hurt. I thought we were gonna build up together and everything." And
And
it
then
was,
by the time the half marathon with CJ turned up, it was like, okay, he's fine.
yeah, yeah. I think I got a little worried a few days after that, but I was good. And um, I don't know. I went to the bishop in our local congregation and had him give me a blessing, and um, I think I consider it a miracle from the Lord that I was able to get healthy that quickly.
All right, let's get into some listener questions. You went with the Alpha Fly 1 for your sneaker choice. You also did in Chicago. So someone, Carter Babcock, asks, why not the 2 or 3?
I Honestly, it just feels better to me. Um, I don't know why exactly, but in my mind, like my engineering mind, I'm like, yeah, the 2 and the 3 should be better, because there's more foam, there's less of like, I don't know, there's like a lot of hard rubber on the bottom of the Alpha Phi 1, but I just feel better in it.
All right, fair enough. It's a personal choice, I think, and you
Yeah.
know, whatever works for you, you got to keep it working. All right, let's see. We've got what was your go-to first big meal after the marathon?
Oh, I didn't get it. Like I didn't eat for a while, which was terrible. Um, Ashley had brought Clayton pizza in the right before the press room, and I was like, "Oh dang!" And she's like, "Do you want something?" I'm like, "No, I'm fine." But probably probably should have gone for it. But it was pizza like 3 hours later.
All right. Um, Someone asked, what impact has being in Ghana had on you as an adult? I also noticed that too in your Instagram bio. I don't know how long it's been in there, but you've got a phrase in there, right?
Yeah, it's been in there for a long time,
Okay.
almost my whole time I've had social or Instagram. It impacted me a ton. Like living, I don't know. I used to say, and this race was an exception. I really didn't get nervous before races because it living in Ghana, I realized, running is just a sport. It doesn't matter that much. Um, like in the whole grand scheme of things, I'm extremely blessed to live in this country, to have so many people around me, and to do well financially. And I think Ghana kind of like rewired the way my mind worked. Just being incredibly grateful for everything I have and for the people I'm surrounded by. Just most people like you think about it, a lot of Africa doesn't have clean drinking water. They're like sports are the least of their issues, and so it just makes a huge difference on me.
And what's the phrase translate to?
The phrase translates to "small, small, the chick shall drink water." It's like a bait. Have you ever seen a chicken drink water?
I haven't.
They go really slow because I don't know if they like tongue can't like swallow it well, so they have to like they put them whole body down. They get a little bit, and then they have to go up, just kind of like I don't know, move their head, and then it takes a long time, but eventually, bit by bit or small, small, the chicken quenches its thirst.
All right. I dig that. Um, A_L_Webb asks, it's not Alan Webb, asks, what all did Jared Ward do to help you and Clayton? What does his future look like? Could he be a good coach? I mean, he was crying for like hours after the race finished. You guys drove him to tears. And I traded messages with Jared yesterday, and he's still right in that moment.
Oh, he's incredible. What did he help us out with? I could make a huge list. He let me live in his basement for a year. That was like, and
Sam Chalanga lived there too, apparently. And so
Sam
like
Chilling also lived there. Maybe Sam's about to pop off. Um, but he like just did a ton of good. Like his knowledge is huge. He would always answer our questions. Like I felt a little like 2016 was the last really hot trials. And Clayton and I were at a huge advantage because we trained with Jared, because Jared would tell us about like we'd be able to ask him what worked, what didn't work, how could we improve and use what worked for you in the Olympic trials this year. Um, I mean, Jared was a great mentor when I came to BYU. He was there on my visit, even though he was graduated. He like went to breakfast or lunch with us or something, and just I don't know, probably one of the most knowledgeable people in the sport. He would make an amazing coach. Don't know if he'll ever want to do that, but I would love to be coached by Jared. Like if Coach Eiston was like, I'm done, first person I would go to would be Jared.
I like that. Um, Someone asked, Max Oglis ask him if he thinks the early bottle drop affected him. Also, any races before August. Okay, we talked about the bottle.
Yeah.
But then are you planning to race before August?
Yeah, I don't know what.
Your
Depending on how
appearance
many
fee
extra.
just your appearance fee has gone up a little bit.
That's true. So I've thrown around the idea of running like the like New York half or US
Wait,
10 or not.
the New York City half is like next month.
Yeah, I wouldn't be that fit, but it'd be fun to race. It'd be fun to race with like less pressure, you know?
Okay. I don't know about that, Connor. Like it sounds like you add all the pressure when it comes to race day.
I know, but if I go into a race with like not a great build, I'm like, ah, it's just less pressure.
Do you think, now we can talk about it. Like if you hadn't made the team, would you run the 10 like on the track next month to try and get the 10? Yeah, I knew you'd shake your head and say yes.
Yeah, either that or I check where my ranking is heading in because like the 10K is like 18 months or so.
Hmm.
So like my 10 from last year still counts. And I have an okay ranking in the 10K. So I think if I was top three at the trials there, I'd make the team. But I might go after it at the 10.
You still might?
No, or I would have like I
Oh,
might
okay.
if I didn't make the team.
I meant to check the schedule before this to see like Galen has done. I think Galen did the 10K marathon double at the Olympics maybe in
Yeah.
2016.
Yeah.
Would you think about it?
I just don't think like you can really I don't know. I've talked with Galen a little bit about it. And like this was back in like December. And I was surprised when he said he was training for the 10K for that Olympic build. He did the marathon, he never ran over 20 miles. And even heading into the Olympic Games, he hadn't ran over 20 miles. And like you weren't training for a marathon and you medaled, like what the heck? Like, but I just don't think I could really give my best in the marathon if I trained like if I was trying to double dip at in the Olympic Games. I think it would be fun, and I like the idea, but I know it wouldn't be what's best.
Last year you PR'd in the 1500. You want to jump in one this year as well?
That'd be fun, or a mile. I kept joking with Ray to throw me in the Wanamaker mile this weekend. Come on, Ray, I know you're in charge of it, and it's just like no. Um, yeah, I don't know. I had the thought of trying to jump in at U.S. indoor champs when if I didn't make the team. I'm like, just put me in another race. Like I had all these like things I was gonna do if I didn't make the team.
You would have
Um,
signed up for every single race
I
and we
probably
would have
would.
loved it. We would have just
Yeah,
been like, Conner Mantz has signed up to run at USA Indoors and the 10 or whatever might have been like on the same weekend. I wouldn't put it past you. That mile PR 407. Could you get
yeah.
it down? You want to get it down.
Oh, absolutely. Because I've split like I ran in 406 in like a time trial once, and then I ran 403 at the end of a 3K.
I mean,
So I'm like,
we just saw Rory Linkletter go to BU and break 4, and
yeah,
that gives you confidence.
oh, 100%, 100%. And like I feel like most of the best marathoners in the world can break four. I'd love to get it down to like 355 or something that like I don't know, like breaking four. Like Coach I Stone and Ray keep joking with us at like keep joking with Clayton and I like because neither of us has broken four. Like, all right, time to sign you guys up for a mile, and we're like, let's do it. Put us in one.
Could have been the Wanamaker this weekend.
Oh yeah,
Um,
no way Ray would have let me in that.
you could get in the B section, the
It's
second
true.
heat. Um, all right, Connor. Well, I looked at your Instagram. You haven't made like a big reflection post. You only had the one post up that you wrote yourself. You're accepting all the collab tags, which we love to
Yeah.
see. Uh, you posted about your wife. I couldn't have done this without you. I love you, Kylie Mantz. And I mean, Clayton talked a bit about his wife and the sacrifices that she's made going back to 2019 when he went all in to try and win the 10K title and everything, and how she prepares meals for him. I mean, this is your chance. I guess, like, how important was she in this buildup?
She was very important. I think the big thing for me was just the steadiness that she brings and the focus that she brings to other aspects of life. Like we cook together and we kind of do a lot of things together. It's kind of nice though, just to have like a steadiness and like somebody there to like keep me grounded. And I think it was a little tough for her for the Olympics specifically because it was such a for the Olympic trials because she knew it was such a big thing, but she just kind of kept being like, what she kept saying stuff like, you just need to remember this is another race. Don't go and treat it like anything special. And I don't know, she was like my person to, it isn't more like running specific things, but like if I went to a sports psychology session, I could come back and be like, okay, here's what we talked about. So I could really ingrain it by explaining it to her. But then she would continually remind me, oh, like, do you remember Dr. Golightly said this and he said this? And I was like, okay, yeah, I got to keep that in mind. And I don't know, sometimes I get lost in my thoughts and I start like, I don't know, kind of like the nervousness of the like before the race that kind of happens all the time. And when she's there, she kind of just helps me stay calm.
Love that. Um, all right, final thing, Connor, before I let you go, is obviously people on the outside looking in can see the trajectory of your career being like NCAA champion, like really good immediately as a professional, that this was, you know, going to be and it was meant to happen. But for you, I guess, like how much of a combination, like, they say this on the How I Built This podcast all the time, a combination of luck and hard work did it take to get on this Olympic team?
Oh, that's a good question. A ton of it. Obviously, I think the big thing with luck came from my freshman year at BYU. I came in and just was like, I came back to my mission. I'd gained 30 pounds, but I lost a lot of it before I came to BYU, just in that summer, which makes no sense to me because I was on a diet of like ice cream and Cheerios or something. I don't know. Um, but I trained really hard then, and I just hammered every workout, and I just got dropped and destroyed, and was hammering my mileage and brought it way higher than I probably should have. And I didn't get hurt. I didn't get hurt for oh, more than 2 years, 2.5 years. And so it like that was very lucky. Um, I don't and like BYU has great support staff, so don't want to take anything from that. But there've been a lot of times I've had a lot of luck, whether it be, going through injuries very quickly or not getting hurt when I should have. I, I'm, I don't know, working hard I think is very important, but I think everyone's working hard. At least I like to think about it. I think I'm very disciplined though, and I don't know. I just in my mind everyone's working hard. He was at the trials, so I don't know if I had anything on anybody with working hard, but maybe I did. Um, Maybe I sacrificed more. I don't know.
Well, Connor, congratulations again on qualifying for the Olympic team in Paris. We're excited to follow along on the journey. If you come to New York for the NYC half, that'd be awesome. We can celebrate here a bit. But thanks so much for doing this. And yeah, I could tell, like, on Instagram, it's hard to come up with like the overarching caption to like encapsulate that full day. So I'm glad we got to spend an hour here to just chat through things, because, it's longer than just, the space you have in a caption. So thanks so much, Connor.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chris.